All right, everyone. Welcome to this very special installment of the P2 podcast. With me today, I have our lovely client, friend, role model, Marisa. I said it with a little Spanish flair just because I'm feeling real flary today. I'm really excited to have her on. She just radiates positive energy. She's an excellent, when I say role model, I don't even know if she would call herself a role model, beyond her kids, which we'll talk about. But I know of so many people in our community who reference her and talk about the things that she's accomplished and what they want to be like and how those are little pieces of her. And so having her on today just felt right. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, and say hi to the people.
Hey there, my name is Marisa, and I'm excited to be on with Chris and with P2.
It's going to be a good one. I like to start off with a quick icebreaker question that gets us into the crux of things. And so what is something that everyone who's listening should know about you?
Yeah, okay, icebreaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love my family. I love fitness, and I am very, very, very heavy into my faith. It guides me, and I'm excited now that I'm getting a little bit older to be going back to school for physical therapy. So that's exciting for me.
That is dope. I didn't know you were going to. I saw the post, but as Brass will tell you, I don't read captions. I probably should. So I didn't know what you were going to school for, but that is dope. That was actually my, so like you can't major in physical therapy as an undergrad. You can only get it as a doctorate, obviously, or not a doctorate. Then it was, you could get a master's still, but it was my pre-physical therapy is what I was, right? So I was like the nursing track and everything like that. And then I graduated and decided to go into medical sales instead and forego more school. But that is super dope. What brought you back to physical therapy?
So I'm actually, as you just said, I have to finish up my pre-physical therapy track. So right now I'm finishing up a psychology major, and I've been doing pretty much fitness as an adult. That's all I've done. So personal training, coaching, group fitness, all of those things. And for me, I love working with people. I am a huge advocate for mobility, and it was just for me like the natural progression up. I wasn't able to do it before, kind of left school kind of early because it's not easy raising kids and working and living life in general. And now that they're a little bit older, I said, why not?
No, I love that. My mom was not a single mom. My dad and she separated when I was 6. She married my stepdad when I was like 7 or 8, something like that. But she like always operated like that, right? Like she always took care of us. She took care of work, and watching her balance that through life gave me a lot of just empathy for what moms have to go through. And my mom only had, two, me, my little brother, and then my stepsisters. So it was like 4 of us. But there's another part of the lore that is you, that you have more than 4 kids, which is impressive, beautiful, and really impressive again.
Yeah, so we have a total of 8. I have 3 biological, and then he had 4 and I had 1 before we got together. And so the age ranges are insane now that they're older. So I'm starting to lose count. They're at that age now. So they literally range from 32 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah, family parties are definitely fun, right? Fun, interesting. I think it's cool. My little brothers are 10 years younger than me, and as much, like, obviously I get it from my best friends now, right? Those are my brothers. But as much as I wanted a brother growing up who was closer in age, I do think that decade age gap between myself and my little brother that I have from my mom's marriage with my stepdad, and my twin brothers I have from my dad's marriage with my stepmom, it lends itself to no one wants to listen to dad and mom, right? But brother's a little easier, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey man, listen, like he's just trying to, or she's just trying to, here's what I and it sometimes feels like it lands a little better. And so that's been a fun role to play as the big brother. But yeah, I definitely think it makes the dynamic interesting, and I think it enters into a place that can be really special in its uniqueness. So, that's super cool. As far as I think being the mom, right? I think you carry a lot of weight, whether you don it purposefully or not. What do you think your kids see in you that they're like, hey, you know what? This is what my mom taught me. This is the big thing my mom wanted me to get from this.
That one's hard, only because we've gone through so many stages of life. And within those stages, there's been experiences that have happened. And if I'm honest, 100%, I've not always been the most patient, even with best intentions. So I think that more than anything, what I want them to see in me is growth, as a mom. So, and as a person in general, this is how she was at one point in time. And, now as life has carried on and taught her some lessons, like this is, who she is now. And, you can evolve in different ways, and you can be, the person that you want to be, despite your flaws. And you can be, this good person that overcomes a lot, So I think for me, that would probably be what I would say, is just seeing that you can grow, you can learn from mistakes, and that you can come out on the other end of things.
Yeah, it's funny. I felt like I was asking my mom that question. And I feel like that's probably very similar to an answer she would give. My mom had me when she was 17, right? So the version of her that I knew as a child is very different than the version of her that I knew today. And I think that's, if there's anything that I think I have from my parents, I'm not going to speak for anyone else or my siblings. My favorite thing that I got from them is growth and resilience. Say, hey, listen, like, things aren't going to be easy. Things are going to be hard. Sometimes you might make them harder than they're supposed to be or they need to be. But being able to accept responsibility, accountability, work through it, get better, evolve, and show up again, that's not something that you're born with. It's something that you learn. And if you can learn it from your parents, obviously you can typically learn it sooner than they probably learned it. So it's like, you kind of cascade the expirational knowledge effect, right? Like the idea that you can learn something at 15 that it took your dad to 25 to learn, and so on and so forth. And so that is really cool, and I think I commend you for, even being honest with yourself and being honest with everyone listening. Like, hey, listen, like, I wasn't always the best, but I think that's the beauty in it. Like, if someone's like, oh yeah, it was easy for me, like, okay, well then it's not fun, because it's not easy for anybody, right? Like, no one has it easy. And so people want to know, like, oh, I am struggling, I am going through these things, but this person right here with probably a lot more kids than I have, right? Like, definitely a more complicated family dynamic with more layers, was like, no, like, it wasn't easy, but we made it, and we're better for a lot of those experiences. So that's dope. I think I asked that question as like a leading question, especially because with fitness being your life, right? Like, how do you think that impacted what your kids saw and what they did? Because I think that we get a lot of our habits, or habits we don't have that we probably should have, from the presence or lack of thereof of the habits of our parents.
Well, so a little tidbit about me and my husband. We are very music heavy. He plays the drums. He's does music production, all those kind of things. And I've always sang in a band. And so our kids have always been more musically inclined. So that's been more of they've been guided more, probably, I guess you could say, in that direction.
Yeah.
The fitness side of things. I unfortunately never got the opportunity to be like that sports mom that I always thought that I would be. Like, I played in high school and in middle school, I played volleyball, ran track, played basketball. And so I just knew I was going to be like the sports mom. We have 5 boys. So I'm like, yeah, we got this. And the closest that I got to that was being a dance mom. So
Respect.
Oh, but to be fair, that is a lot. It is a lot. So, but our kids have always been musically inclined. Like even just out the womb, like our youngest son, like just the natural rhythm of drums, like he can play like it ain't nothing. And my daughter, she sings and she tries to learn the piano, and all the kids were in band. So that was more so like the direction that they went, more so than the fitness. But they crack me up, like as teenagers now. They're like, yeah, mom's on keto. And I'm like, if you say that I'm on keto, just, just shooting the breeze and for, my fitness stuff. Oh, it's time. We're not going to be eating any of the fun stuff anymore because mom's, she's in prep. So it's like, I cook 2 separate meals all the time.
Yeah.
Just try to make sure that I try to include a vegetable in there for them. And, but, I think that they eat whatever, like and as of now, their genes have been great.
Yeah. Yes.
So, with teenagers, they don't care nothing about none of that. And out here, unless you're like a heavy into sports, fitness isn't like a huge push.
Fair enough.
I would like for them to be a little bit more forward with that, but I let everybody be their own, as long as I don't see telltale signs of other issues, I let them be who they are.
Yeah. I think that's super dope and cool of you to acknowledge, and also cool to be like versatile. I think that's the big thing for me. People have asked as a former athlete, they're like, hey, like, what will you do if like your son's like, Dad, I want to dance or I want to play trumpet? I'm like, well, then I'm going to go teach him how to play trumpet or take him to dance. Like, I hope my kids don't play football. Like, play another sport, any other sport, please. But like, if you want to play football and it's your passion, I'll show you how to do that really well. But also, like, Dad would much rather you play soccer, or like if you want contact, let's go like lacrosse or something like that. Like, let's get away from the concussions. But like at the end of the day, I want my kids to be happy, and I think that's, you can tell like when parents kind of gravitate towards, oh, well, they weren't really that into that. And I think that it's natural to be like, well, I wish they were into this more. And then you could be kind of bummed about it. And then you get over it and you go, but what are you into? Like, let's go do that instead, right? Yeah. But I think some people kind of lay in that space of like, oh, well, you're not into this, so like, I'll just go do my own thing. And a little bit of that with my dad growing up. But I will say on the same token, to your point of, they kind of do what they want to do and maybe they're not that into fitness, I would, from the child's point of view, tell you like, they're watching, right? And I think that's the coolest part about you and other moms and dads who do take their health really seriously, who do carve out that time in the day to go take care of themselves and have that self-care opportunity, because it lets your kids know that this is not only okay, but this is encouraged. Like, this is what you should do. Like, you should take care of yourself. It lays out an example, and seeing my dad do that, he took care of himself. Like, he went to do his own thing, but also he was always in the gym, always dressed really nice, took care of his space, was always well kept. And he didn't tell me, he just did it. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be cool like him. Like, I want to do that. And when I get older and I have some money, I want to dress nice, I want to do this. And I do think that's important. Like, the examples that you set, whether they are readily taking them up in the immediacy or not, are definitely really important.
Yeah. And I think that on the other like flip side of that, they have a work ethic, especially like the younger ones. They really push. Like, my youngest daughter, she's literally been working since she was like 15. And she's like, I like money. I want to work. I want to be able to get what I want to get when I want to get it, how I want to get it. I don't want to have to wait on anybody. I don't want to have to, rely on my parents for, anything that I want. Like, it's innate in her. And so a lot of times that's the other flip side of of them not being in sports, is that they just decided to work. And she's like exploring, and they all do, kind of exploring like different things that they like, like I tell them all the time, you're young, you're not locked into no job. You're not obligated for anything. And at any point in time, I want you to know you do not have to do this.
Right.
You do this because you're choosing to, because you want to, not because you have to. But yeah, like, you don't have to, you're not locked into anything that you do not want to do, especially at this age. Like, live a little bit. Like, you got time to work. Like, that'll always be here, unfortunately. And trust and believe, when you get older, it's going to be here when you don't want it to be here.
This is facts. This is facts. We could all go back and just be like, I'll take that day off or whatever. My little brothers are the same way. They will just work, senselessly so. Like, sometimes you want to say, hey, hold on, let's keep the effort. Let's just redirect it in a place that's going to pay some more long-lasting dividends for you. But in general, like you said, that work ethic is what you want your kids to have, right? You don't want kids to be lazy. And a lot of times kids learn that ethic through sports or something physical, something hard, because it's the easiest way to teach. Hey, this hurts, this sucks, this is pain. You keep going, you keep showing up, you get better.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but like
about that, yeah.
Well, it's dope though that your kids learned how to do it, and they didn't need that, right? They found another way to find that same kind of pattern, that same kind of ethic, whether it's in their craft of music or it's in their goals for work. They learned that lesson, and I mean, if I was betting, I bet a part of that came from watching you and the way that you go after the things that you want, because it is tenacious, and they have to know it's impressive. Like, they have to be able to go, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot of us, and she's still doing something really cool. She's still able to go out there and go after it, whether it's cutting sleep out or sacrificing other things to make sure that you're putting forth that work. That is an example, and I'm sure that there's part of that feeds into how they show up in their own lives.
Yeah, and a huge part of that, honestly, is their dad. Like, he is a living, breathing example of a provider, of a dad. So they always have had that example, because before I did anything, I was a stay-at-home mom. So, I took care of them. He took care of everything else. So whether him working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever it needed to happen, he did it. So I truly believe he was probably the head example of that, as he should be. I'm more grateful for that than I could ever imagine, because without that, I wouldn't be able to go to school now. I wouldn't have been able to, explore things in fitness that I enjoy doing. And he's just made life easier for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one thing, my dad, for all his flaws, it's the one thing I've always credited him for, something I have, and also just the way he was. Like, if he was absentee, the providing was still there, right? If you needed something, he got it for you. If you need this or whatever, like he was there, right? We talk now, we're like best friends. I can talk to him like, yeah, you're literally my best friend. I tell you everything. I don't know if I have a friend who has a dad that they tell everything like he's their boy, Yeah. And yeah, like, as a kid, I wished that you were around more. And also, like, I'm really thankful for what we have now. I'm not resentful. I'm not angry. Like, I'm glad that you're able to be better for my brothers and even more available for my nieces. But, I'm happy that, like, on a random Friday afternoon, if I'm driving to the gym, I call you, and before you know it, I've sat outside the gym for 45 minutes laughing on the phone with you and joking about this or whatever. So that model of, like, dude, this is a guy who used to go and drive trucks for 14, 16 hours a day. He would come home, sleep for 3 hours, and then, because I didn't have a lot of time with him, I would go, okay, sweet, I'm going to sleep for those same 3 hours. And then he would get up and go get the newspapers. So he would also drive freight to drop off at all the different newspaper stations. But he couldn't take me to the terminal to get the papers because, like, a little kid here, you can't do that. So he would always call the house back at like 11:30, 12 o'clock, like, hey, you still up? I'm like, yeah. And so he'd come back, pick me up, and we would go do that, drop all the papers off, and then he would drop me off and go back. But this was a guy that, like, ran on 4 hours of sleep every single day because he's like, I need to buy a house for my family. There was, 5 of us in that house, the kids, and then obviously 2 parents. But, he did that, right? Like, he showed me the meaning of, you just do what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, and almost to a fault sometimes. I know people in life now are like telling people, like, just toxic work culture, like, don't work yourself too hard, don't get so focused on. I'm like, yeah, I like working. I like doing things with my hands. I like creating things. I like providing for those people that I care about. I definitely think there's something about not hinging your self-worth on whatever that is. But
Right.
there's a fine line between, I like being that person that my people can depend on. I like being that person that people know if they need something done, he will just by any means, tooth and nail, he will get it done. And I'm like, I got that from him. You know, and then coupled with what I saw from my mom, because she's very much the same person. And, you know, you can call it how I've been in the house with some stay-at-home moms. My ex-girlfriend's mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she had 4 girls. And the dad, he was a broker, made a lot of good money, but dude, her job was not easy. I was like, I'm like, she only had 4 girls, so I know that your kids are staggered, but I've seen the life of a stay-at-home mom up close, and I'm like, trust me, like this is being able to stay at home is not fair compensation for what you have to do in that house.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. It's yeah, it's not as easy as a lot of people think it is. But and honestly, it's not just the work that comes with it. And I think that, I mean, this could be just something in general. This is not just with stay-at-home moms, but I know just from working with, you know, moms, and, you know, when I've done like fitness consultations with moms, the biggest thing has always been, you know, I've lost myself. Like, I've lost my identity. I don't know who I am anymore. You know, I'm either somebody's mom, or I'm somebody's wife, or I'm, you know, somebody's something else other than just who they are. And I think that's the hardest part, is like losing yourself and not knowing who you are as an individual. And that takes a lot of, digging, sometimes more than what you want to do, or that you want to commit to doing. And so I know so many people, and including myself, who's gone into kind of dark places, just not knowing that and not taking that time to really just take care of self, and making sure that we're filling our own cup. Because I always say you can't fill from an empty cup. You can't survive in an empty cup, you know? So you have to take that time to figure you out and know who you are, and not lose yourself. Because then that starts to, you know, impact other areas of your life. And so if you fill your cup can overflow into other people's cups. And it just helps you stay grounded in ways.
That's huge. That's a soundbite, just so you know, that will be clipped. Because I think it's important, right? You know, as a mama's boy, like, you know, I use a different metaphor with her now. Like, so my she's still young, so we have conversations very much as peers sometimes. And I'll go, hey, you know, you are always trying to drop a rope, drop a ladder down to someone below you and help them up, and that's awesome. But you don't have anything stable to hang on to pull them up. You know, you have to get to the top first. Like, get yourself up so that you can reach back and help others. Like, be careful, because you'll reach back to help someone, and before you know it, you're both falling down the rungs, right? Because you don't have a stable place to pull them from. And I always wished, I was talking to one of our good friends who's a mom about this, and I'm like, I wish that as an adult right now, I could write letters to my mom and send them back down the timeline, because I know that there's like sacrifices that she made and things that she didn't do or did that took away from things that she could do for herself in the silence, in the darkness, without telling anyone, without broadcasting. You know, hey, mom, I want those shoes. Hey, mom, can I go here? Can I do this? Can I do that? And she says yes with a smile, or yeah, we'll make it happen, or we'll figure it out. And in the back of her mind, she knows that there's going to be a sacrifice made on her end, whether it's sleep because she has to work that extra hour and take that extra client, or, you know, it's not going to get that things that she needs for herself, not getting, like, my mom would just go, oh yeah, like she had cavities, like she would get a cavity and she would just let it go because, like, well, no, like the kid's teeth. I'm like, mom, your teeth. I'm like that's important, you know? And so mom has a sweet tooth, dude. She loves candy, and so do I. But like she's had her fair share of cavities, you know, she's had her fair share of cavities. And I'm just like, that's not something that should go by the wayside. Like, you shouldn't be standing on your feet all day braiding hair or doing hair with, you know, a tooth that needs a root canal, right? Like, you have to take care of yourself. And sure, in those moments, maybe AJ or myself or my sisters might have felt slighted if you said, hey, I'm sorry, like, we're not going to do those shoes, and you bought yourself some new shoes for the first time in 4 years, or you went out with your girlfriends instead of, coming to my little whatever. Like, I understand that those are sacrifices to be made, but if that meant that the next time I got you, I got a fuller version of you, I got a more 100% full, happy version of you, I would take that trade-off over and over and over again. So I think that what you just said is very important about filling your cup and separating that time for self and showing your kids like, hey, I'm not going to be there, or I have to do this instead, but like, it's okay, because when we make this trade-off here, the next time I'm here, when we do this, it's going to be full. It's not going to be something that's just kind of caught in the wind.
Yeah. And that's actually what brought me back to fitness. When I after getting married and having kids and stuff, definitely put on some weight. And so it was those moments back in the gym that actually got me back. Like, that was like one of the first steps of working towards something for myself.
Yeah.
And so that little bit of a reminder within itself was something that kind of sparked something. And when things started happening and changing for myself, it's like, man, like, I want somebody else to experience what I'm experiencing and feel the way that I feel. And that's what actually got me into like, hey, well, let me do this. Like, I never thought that I wanted to be a personal trainer when I was younger. Like, that wasn't on my list of things that I said, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I wanted to either be an athletic trainer or I wanted to be a pediatrician. Oh. And yeah, neither one of those. You
got kids and fitness in your life in some variety.
So those are like my go-to things. And now, like, I'll be honest, I could not imagine working with kids anymore. Like, I've had my experiences, I've raised mine, and like, now I'm happy, like, when I see my friends and they have their kids, because I was like the first one to have all the kids. I did all of that early. So now, like, some of my best friends, they're just now like having kids. They have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and and it's like, yay, I get to hug your babies and then I can give them back to you. Yeah. And I love it and I love them. But yeah, I'm past that phase of my life.
Yeah, no, that's it's dope, obviously, to be able to like reflect on and see. Before we pivot, I have a question for you, obviously, because there's the whole trend of like the same 24, right? And like where that whole notion that everyone has the same 24 hours. And I think that there are two really extreme camps of people that are arguing about this. But I think when looked at sensibly, it makes pretty good sense as long as a person who's smart is looking at it. But what is your opinion on that when it comes down to when someone says, hey, like, everyone has the same 24 hours? Like, how do you work with moms who are struggling to figure out, like, well, how do I adjust this? Like, it's not fair. They don't have this, they don't have that. As a person who has had a lot of responsibility, how do you balance that? How do you encourage others to balance that and recognize, like, hey, like, we do have this time, like, it's your time. How do you allocate it? How you allocate it is up to you.
So I do think that we all have the same 24 hours. I mean, time is time. It's constant. It doesn't change when it comes to that. However, I think, and you posted something about this, and I think, and it kind of stuck with me just a little bit. Just the sacrifices that you make within those 24 hours are different. And I really like 100% agree with that. I have a little cousin, and she just had a baby, and, she's like on this fitness journey or whatnot. And she, whatever, if it's 20 minutes, if it's 30 minutes, she'll have the baby right there and she'll do what she got to do and she'll get it in. So like, I think that you have to figure out what works for you, and you have to figure out what's most important to you at the end of the day. And if you can figure that out and you can come down with that, and if you're 100% honest with yourself, like, don't say, I want this and this is what I need and this is, and just say it. Like, anybody can do that, but you have to really think about your why and why you're doing something. And if you can't really come up with a true, honest version of what it is that you're looking for or what your expectations for yourself are, then it's easy to make excuses. And let's be real, we all make excuses.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many things, like so many things that I want to do, so many things. I have like list and list of things that like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And at the end of the day, they're not done. And why? It's clearly not that important to me right at this current season of my life. And so until it becomes like live, eat, and breathe this, then it's not going to happen, you know? And so you have to determine what it is that you want out of your life and what is important to you, and then make those time allocations based on that. And if it doesn't fit in that, then it's clearly not that important to you. And it's okay. It's nothing wrong with that. Like, nobody's going to knock you for it, but just the problem comes when people say things, but their lives don't align with it.
Right.
And so that's the hard part. It's like, well, you can't say it's important to you, or you want to make this change if you're not willing to do the things that are required of you to make these changes.
For sure. I like the metaphor of jugglers, right? Like most people who are like, I can juggle 3 balls, right? Like you start throwing a 4th one, a 5th one, and like you have to get your higher. And so I tell my clients, I tell friends, family, I'm like, realistically, like you could probably only focus on like 2 to 3 things that are really important to you. And I think that's a really important distinction to make before trying to decide what's important to you. It's like, okay, I have 3 slots to fill, maybe 2.5. 2 are going to get a lot of my attention, and the third's going to get like some time. But like I have a guitar hanging on my wall. I love to write. I want to get back into MMA. I want to start running again. I want to start learning about photography and stuff like that because I have a passion behind a camera. That's a lot of things that I want to do, right? And sure, I could meticulously break down my calendar and dedicate 30 minutes to each every other week and run it for the year. And then in my head, I go, well, then I can't get that good at any of them if I don't, so now I have to like narrow down what's most important to me. And it's a very trivial way to, I think, try to set like a tone for like an extrapolation of, hey, no one's telling you have to do the same thing with your 24 hours that I do with mine, right? And I think that's where we get into this contentious space where people are like, well, what about this person that has to, and this person? And I'm like, I can tell you, it's like, I don't want to speak for someone. I said, I can tell you as like a Black male that I've had to probably overcome other things that maybe Bryce hasn't had to overcome. But I'm like, not going to look at his paper and get pissed about mine and go, well, I don't, it seems kind of counterproductive. And I have a mom, I know moms that make it happen, but there might be sacrifices they're making that you're not willing to make. And that is okay. They're not better than you because they make that sacrifice. But don't sit on your hands and point at them and go, well, that they have this, they have that, they have this. And when you're not actually maximizing what it is you want, you haven't committed to yourself. You haven't actually set the action items in place to go and accomplish the things that you want, because to your point, they're not that important to you. And it is okay that they are not that important to you. You're allowed to say that fitness is 5th on my list after my family, after hanging out with friends, and after my sleep, and after whatever in my career. I'm like, okay, sweet. Like, that's fine. So let's treat it like it's 5th place. We don't have to treat it like it's 1st just because she does. And it's that gripe with self that I think a lot of people struggle to get over. So then it becomes this like projected conversation of like, well, everyone does it. I'm like, well, they do. They just spend it differently. And that is okay. Like, let's just leave it at that.
Well, the other thing too is that people nowadays, it's like this extremist mindset. It's like, I have to give 110% or I can't give any percent at all. And that comes to like most things in life, whether it's, fitness, you're 100% in, whether it comes to, your diet, whether it comes to your lifestyle, all of these different things, like you have to be like all in or all out. And life doesn't have to be that way. And it shouldn't be that way. Like, you need room for grace. You need room for error. You need, like, that's life in general. Like, nothing is going to fall 100% into place of like how you expect it to. So you have to leave that door open for flexibility. And so even if, like, let's say one day my daughter, I had to pick her up from work one day, and she was like, well, can we go to the mall? Can we do this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, that was actually going to be my workout time. And it's like, okay, so which one is more important right now? Do I want to take the time to spend some time with her, have some conversation with her, let her tell me about her day, whatever is going on in her life? Or do I be like, yeah, maybe next time, take her home and then go to the gym? That's that juggling that you just talked about. And at that particular moment in time, spending time with her was more important. So what did I do? I just pushed my workout to the next day. And that's okay. As long as I got it in my, like right now in my current season of life, I'm like, at the end of the day, routine is like, I don't even know what that is right now. And so get it in where you can fit it in. That's literally like my mantra. And I'm okay with that because I know like I've tried this thing where I'm like, okay, you're going to get up at this time and do this from this time to this time and then this time to this time. And then when I don't do that, then it's like an epic fail of a day. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, as long as I get it in, then I accomplished what I set out to accomplish. It didn't have to be at that exact time that I set it to be, I might have been tired. I might have stayed up late the day before working on, some projects or papers that I had to write. And now, why am I going to only sleep for 3 hours when I technically can have the time to sleep for the 6 hours? Like that's, if I can get it done, then that's all that matters. And so it doesn't have to be like this extreme rigid structure all the time in life. Like there's like ebb and flows in life where things, sometimes you can get away with the scheduling and the routine because your schedule allows for it. And then sometimes it's not like that. Right. We talk, so I'm also a worship leader at my church. And so we have like these leadership meetings where we kind of huddle together and we talk through things. Yep. And we talk through something called it's like a work rest type of vibe. And so we talk about the pendulum and how the pendulum swings. And so your pendulum can, you have to swing so far in either direction to get to the other side, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we swing so hard into the work side of things that we're forced to crash into that rest side, right? So what if we thought about things in the other direction where we pull it so far into the rest? When we swing into that work side, we can be more efficient, we can be more productive, we can be better at whatever it is that we're doing. So, when I think of things, that's kind of the mindset that I'm trying to get into. It's just like, it's okay to rest. And in those rest moments, like fill your cup, do what you need to do, spend time with your loved ones so that when you jump back into the work side of things, that you're full, you're ready, you're whole, and you have the energy to be your best at whatever it is that you're doing. So that's for me, a visual that I really enjoy.
That's really good. I never really thought about it that way. Obviously, I think about things very black and white and mathematical, but that is a really cool way to think about it, is saying, hey, like because I have a bad habit of when I'm resting, I'm not really resting. I'm thinking about what I need to do when I'm back to work.
Absolutely. That's most people.
Mm-hmm. And so, like I'll stew. Like I'm so bad that I will finish work and I'll go out to hang out with him. And if she starts to fall asleep, I'll like look over at her and I'm like, and I'll just like pull my computer back, right? Like I'm like if you're gonna go to sleep, and I'm actually working, and I am one of the people, I will say, like I enjoy work, right? I really do enjoy work. I just enjoy, like, as I enjoy creating things and stuff like that. But there is something to be said for when I do hit those walls. I wish in those moments I had been like, nah, dude, like leave the computer, just relax, watch whatever cartoon or whatever I'm just trying to relax and enjoy, and fully sink into that rest period. Try to clear your mind and allow yourself the reprieve to recover from the things you've been doing for the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days. So I think that's a really, really good perspective that I hope listeners can take and embody.
And I'll be first to say that I'm working on that. And sometimes I also have to watch myself with the too much rest because like, oh, I deserve that. Or I worked really hard the day before. So today I'm not doing anything. But it's like, okay, do you need to really like take the entire day of doing anything? Or can you like devote, like be productive earlier today and then the rest of the day you have the day to chill, So it's finding that balance in life.
Yeah. And also, like you said, to your point, like understanding like, okay, seasons, This is a season where I have been afforded the opportunity to rest after a really grueling, season, right? Or this is grind mode. I had an opportunity to sit back, and so this is going to be a season where maybe I get a little less restful sleep. I do a little less of the things that bring me joy, but I know that in 3 months or whatever, after this project's done, after I graduate, or this will be different, right? I'll be able to have a season again of a bit more rest and self-care, and so understanding that is also really, really important. Question then, just kind of pivoting a little bit. So you talked about getting back into fitness, right? And what that looked like for you, and kind of rediscovering self and dedicating that time to take care of yourself. Obviously there were sports we mentioned. How did you initially get into fitness? Like, how did it become this thing that you're like, I'm into this? Because I'm assuming that when you got back into it, there was a level of that was kind of catapulted on or like expanded on. But how did you initially find this love for being in the gym?
So I'm competitive with myself, and with other people.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's okay to say other people.
I'm very competitive.
We like beating other people.
And so, like I always, and even now to this day, like I want to do better. So like, if I think that I can do this, like, I think I got more in me. I can do a little bit more. Or like, if I lose a little bit of weight, it was like, okay, now I can adjust how this looks, or I can change this. So it's always this wheel spinning in my head. And when it comes, and it's only, if I'm honest, it's really mainly only like that when it comes to fitness. And then I'm like explorative. So I love to try different things when it comes to fitness. So there were seasons where I literally went through, all these different phases. But lifting always was like a staple of mine, because that was like me against me, always me against me. But because I taught like group fitness, I've always wanted to learn like what is out there, what more is there to learn, what more is there, what do people like, what's currently trending. And I'm always, when it comes to that, I'm always wanting to continue the education when it comes to stuff like that. So I always just would try out stuff. And then, like I said, just the competition of just being better daily. That was something that I was able to get out of fitness that I couldn't do with a lot of different areas in my life. But if it was one thing that I could count on, it was that, like, I've never, outside of taking classes, and honestly, I didn't take as many group fitness classes versus teaching them. I enjoyed teaching them. I enjoyed connecting with people, creating experiences for people when it came to group fitness. But that time to myself, I wasn't really a let's work out with friends type of people. It was like me, my headphones, like, let me go in the gym. I really don't want to work out with anybody because I don't want to have to explain and make sure that you're doing what you need to do. I'm like in my own zone. Like, I don't want to think about any of that when I'm working out. I want to just get what I need to get done. And then, if you need help later or afterwards, or if you need, some tips or whatever, totally there for you. But during my time, that's my time. And so that's kind of what kept pushing me. It's just the competitive you versus you, just ability to continue to challenge myself in different ways. And I still feel like I have that even now. Like, I've been messing with Bryce. I almost wanted to cuss him out yesterday because he was like, we're going to switch gears. I'm like, no, I didn't hit 405 yet. No, I need to stay here. But I just always want to do better. I always want to push myself to be better when it comes to that. And it's like my favorite place to do that in the gym.
Yeah. No, that's dope. And 405 that's dope. I'm looking forward to the day.
Yes, me too.
So did you compete prior? Like, were you competing then and then kids and then came back to it? Or was competing something new that we found in our reestablishment of fitness as a, cornerstone in our life?
So I competed before, in 2019.
Okay.
2018 into 2019. I never really wanted to compete before, mainly because I was just like, I like food. I don't want to have to think about that. I like to eat, and I don't want to have to worry about any of that. And so that was always like my excuses, like, that's too much. Like, I'm happy with just lifting and just enjoying working out for working out. And I went to visit my best friend, and I was looking for a place to train in Atlanta. And another girlfriend of mine, she was like, "You should come to the gym with me." She's a bikini competitor, and she was like, "Come work out with me or whatever." And so I went to the gym, and so I, long story short, I decided to compete then, like just join the team or whatnot. And it was, not going into too much detail, it was a horrible experience. I initially, at the time, wellness wasn't a division. So carried too much muscle for, of course, bikini. And so I decided to do figure. And my first competition was the Arnold. And yeah, like, what? Wait, what? And actually, I didn't do too bad. And I was pretty okay with the results of that. And as time progressed within that season, I went from figure to WPD. And I was like, what just happened here?
Yeah.
Like, this was not what I wanted. You know, I did not want to, I didn't want this much muscle. And no, not to anybody. So let me preface this. Everybody has their desired physique or whatnot. And that was not my personal desired physique. And on top of that, it was a lot of issues in terms of the nutrition. Like in that season, I developed a gluten intolerance. After one show, I came back home and I was bloated like a blowfish, like literally 30 pounds up. My face was swollen, my skin was tight. And I was like, I don't understand this. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was freaking out. And the only reason that I noticed it, like, I didn't even initially feel it. I was on a field trip with my son, and I took like a selfie with him on the little school bus or whatnot. And I was like, man, my face looks like extremely swollen. And now, mind you, I just came from a competition.
Yeah. And
so I was just like tight as ever, you know, and I was like, I don't understand this. And then I went and looked in the mirror, and I was just like, I look like I'm 5 or 6 months pregnant right now. This is crazy. So I'm freaking out. And I'm just like, that weekend, so I don't eat a lot of dairy. And that weekend I consumed like pizza and ice cream. Yeah. So I was like, maybe I just leave the dairy or something, you know, it's bloating me real bad. And so I went and got a food intolerance testing at a doctor. And yeah, they tell me that have a gluten intolerance. They said like the norm is like a 7, something like that. And I was like at 11.7 or something like that. And I was like, what? They were like, just severely, you know, allergic. And I was like, I've never been allergic to gluten in my entire life. How did this just happen randomly? Probably just because I was so restricted in the things I ate. It was fish, asparagus, you know, just your typical bodybuilding, you know, stereotypical meal that, you know, that they have us eating. But coming out of that, I didn't have the desired physique that I wanted. I was developing, you know, intolerances that I never had before, and so many other things that kind of came into play. With that, and it was a horrible experience. I developed a horrible relationship with food. I didn't want to compete. I hated the way that I looked, and I was just like, I'm never doing this again. I will never compete again, ever. Like this was horrible. And so a couple years later, well, COVID.
Yeah.
COVID. That's all I have to say with that.
The blip of COVID.
Life change with that. And then just a lot of other life changes that came into play with that too. And I just completely, like, outside of personal training people, I didn't touch a gym. Like, I didn't work out because I was just like, I got too much muscle. I'm literally trying to atrophy my muscle. Like, I don't like the way I look. And so I stopped working out. I ate like shit. And it took me like a couple of years to, like, even just literally, when I say a couple of years, to like really just get back into a groove of working out again. And that I did feel better. I started doing that. And then, like, you know, I The only thing is I didn't want to really work upper body because I was just like, you know, little buff, little buff. And like I said, I started getting back into it, and then I just started seeing like some of my friends or some people that I knew, they were competing again, and I was like, and then I saw the wellness division, and I was like, oh, that is beautiful. Like, that's nice. I like that. You know, as a Black woman, you know,
Right.
it's a nice fit, you know. And so, and if you know, you know.
Yeah.
But
If you know, you know.
it, I started like, you know, but still, even then, I was just like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I just had such a bad experience with a coach, and I don't know where to go from there. And so I finally, I tried out, like, kind of played around with a coach or two, and I was like, I didn't really vibe. Like, it wasn't, and I was just like, they're nice, they're cool, but I'm not seeing, you know, long-term wise,
Right.
that this will be a good fit for me. And I had been following Dylan for a while. And I don't know, you know, they have infectious energy, him and Lauren, and just amazing people in general. And something was just like, just reach out and see, you know, what that looks like or whatnot. And so I reached out to Dylan, and we had a little consultation, and just all I can say is alignment. Like, it was good timing, good energy, like bouncing off of each other. Like, it felt good. And I was just like, okay. And then just the fact that for me, it's big that he's a registered dietitian. Like, that's important. So me kind of fixing my relationship with food was like number one before even like jumping into like competition prep mode. So I probably spent like 6 months with him, just kind of working through those things before we even said, you know, hey, let's do this. Let's go for this. And so I think I started with him in June, and by January, I think we went ahead and went to a prep, and it was like the easiest thing in the world. Like, I was just like, man, I get to eat this and I get to have that, and I'm not starving, and I'm not craving things. Like, I have the balance that I need. If I want an Oreo, I can still have an Oreo. Now, are you going to eat Oreos every single day, all day? No, you're not. At least it worked and you still see results, you know? So it was just, and then, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to talk about like the week leading up, you know, peak week. Peak week.
World's different than it was before, huh?
Oh my gosh, like in a sauna for an hour, 2 hours of cardio, peak week, eating like no sodium and just bland fish and horrible. Oh, it was so bad. And then just to still walk on stage watery and, you know, not how I should look. And just with Dylan, and he's like, nope, you're good. Oh, add this. And I'm like, I'm not even hungry. Like, what? I don't even understand this. This is insane. Literally mind-blowing. And then just the first show coming back at Girl Power and just being able to, like, that was a memorable moment for me, because it's like, okay, this felt good, and this exactly how it should be. And I'm so excited with the outcome. And I had even said walking into it, like, whatever happens, I'm happy with, because just my outlook on competing has been changed. But like, that was just like the icing on the cake.
Is icing, all right?
Yeah, icing on the cake. And then to make that icing even sweeter, funny story, the girl that I beat for the overall was my old coach's. So that was like so
love
sweet.
I love that. That is, and if you know the petty in me, I think you've been able to grasp the petty. The petty in me is like,
yes,
bravo, we love this.
It gets suppressed a lot, but it's definitely there.
I feel like we need to let it out more often. I think people are getting away with a lot of junk, so people should be more petty, and people learn their lessons. So I have an interesting question for you. Obviously, you mentioned the introduction of wellness into the bodybuilding divisions, and obviously how that plays well for women who like naturally carry more muscle, especially in their legs, whether it be Black women, Hispanic women, et cetera. Like, you see a lot of these women dominating this class. and obviously like for me, it's funny because like I have two of my friends, two of my like my homies, so like Dom and Rico, the guys I grew up with, my black friends are coming to visit me in Denver in a couple of months. And they're like, yeah, I feel like you need to get some. I said, I need black people in my life. I said, no offense. I said, I love my friends. I love my friends. In fitness, there's it's like dominoes. There's not a whole lot of us, right? Sometimes there's little pockets where you can find some likeness. And I think it is an interesting thing. I used to joke that the reason why you don't see as many black people in bodybuilding is because they're playing real sports. But I think it is a little deeper than that, especially when it comes down to like women in general, like fitness for women and what that looks like. And Em and I will talk about it all the time, like the idea of beauty and what she grew up with was you need to have a thigh gap, and there was Paris Hilton, this and that. And I'm like, bro, I never found Paris. Like I grew up with thick women. I was into Beyonce and J-Lo, and I'm like, there's nothing about me that has anything to do with this, bro, you know? And I think that is a really interesting cultural layer that adds to, you know, even for the black women I have on my roster, their goals are very different than some of the white women I have on my roster. How is that navigating that space, a space where sometimes there's not a whole lot of us, but then now having a division that's kind of like saying, hey, we can do this, and we can keep the body types that culturally we become accustomed to, that we desire, that we want, that align with our own self-image, and not being judged by someone else's like standard of what this should look like. I think that your perspective would be a really interesting one. I heard my mom's, heard my sisters, and so I've been trying to just kind of like really sit back and listen, because it is one that I consistently have asked my questions about, like, why aren't there more black girls that work with P2 or work with BA? Why are there fewer black women in the sport in general? What is it about the sport that might be alienating? What is it about fitness culture that might be semi-segregating? It's a very interesting conversation.
So I think that it's very nuanced, honestly, because I feel like in the bodybuilding world, like leanness is like appreciated, and I think, if I'm honest, I don't know if a lot of people, and I mean people may disagree with this, I feel like there's a lot of instances where, just like some people don't know how to do like black women's hair, it's the same thing, like to build a black woman's body up, or to help them cut or get lean or whatnot. I've always been the one who carried muscle well. And for me, it's a twofold thing, because I tend to lean out the most in my upper body versus my legs. And I, even coming into like competing again, even working with Bryce, I've always, and telling Dylan too, like I've always had the thing like, I'm scared to work upper body because I don't want to get, I don't want to build more. Like with wellness, the whole idea is to build lower body, and honestly, that was like my feedback, is that I needed to grow my legs more.
Right.
And I think that just the standard of beauty to some extent is still in that kind of conventional mindset or traditional mindset that a lot of Black women try to fall into that. So, whether it be, wearing straight hair for your shows, or, making sure that you can find a makeup artist who knows how to do Black women's makeup, not, look crazy, because I've seen some interesting stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's a confidence thing too. Like, I'm one of those type of people, like, I don't care what room that I walk into, like, I want my energy to speak for itself. So I don't think about like what other people expect me to look like. Like, I just want to look like how I want to look like. And so it is funny because to be fair, when I look at BA's roster, it is predominantly white females or males. And I don't see very many, Black women. And I'm sure that goes for a lot of teams. And if you do see teams, there are just like teams full of just Black people,
Right,
or,
right.
you know, it's either that or you're kind of sprinkled in or whatnot. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that kind of, you start seeing coaches who don't know how to accurately prepare women or competitors for a national stage. And at the end of the day, the goal is to be on a national stage. I see people who step on stage that should not step on stage.
Yep.
Who are not technically ready in terms of, you know, how their physiques look. And that could be a somewhat discouraging experience, especially if you win a competition because you went to a less competitive show and then you think that you're competitive and then you actually go to one of these shows and you're like, yeah, like, I don't look one of these people. Like, well, I'm not ready for this, you know? And so it can be a little discouraging, but I do think that it's a hard one. And I don't know why. And I actually, honestly, I take that back. I think another thing when it comes to Black women is, and this is something that I experienced in some Black groups that I'm in regards to muscle, is Black women are afraid to build muscle because they don't want to look like a man, or, you know, if you lift weights, you know, you're going to like, it's these really preconceived notions of what it really looks like when that's not accurately depicted. Or some men like their women thicker and these women want to look like what the men want them to look like. And I don't think you're being fair to yourself by doing that. You're doing yourself a disservice. And then in the long run, you're possibly creating health issues for yourself in the future by not putting yourself first when it comes to your health. But I think that plays a big part in Black women. And as I was speaking through it, it just kind of started speaking to me a little bit. It's just the standard of beauty is different for Black women and white women.
Yeah. No, it's huge. I'm glad that you touched on it. Those are all things that I've kind of grown to kind of infer a bit about what is going on underneath the hood there. But as a man, even as a Black man, I still don't want to ever tell someone what their experience is, especially even if it's even like I've talked to this person, talked to that person, and I'm starting to get pieces, and even just things that I've seen, things that I've experienced, either being in like interracial relationships and stuff like that, just saying, okay, well, cool. Like I've dated Black women, I've dated Hispanic women, I've dated white women, and you kind of get a feel for like culturally the way that they see the world, like where the overlaps are. Okay, cool. Like this group might see this a little differently. And I think the fitness and health and the misconceptions about what training really hard in the gym will bring and how that all, you know, unfolds in the long term, you know, those are definitely gaps that need to be bridged. I think there's a fitness education gap, right? The idea of, I think, less people who look like us grow up watching their mom go to Bally's and do this and do that. And that's why I was really big on like the image and example you set for your kids, even if they're not like super into fitness and eating salads. It's like, no, but they're seeing it, they're watching, and they know. So when the time comes for them to apply what they know, it's not starting from scratch and trying to figure things out. It's like, no, my mom showed me, even if she didn't teach me directly, she showed me in what she did how to maneuver this space. And I think that that's a really, really important piece. So thank you very much for diving into that. As we get ready to wrap up, because Em's got her podcast here momentarily, and then I have a team call with Bryce where I'll tell them that we had an awesome conversation. I like to close out with the inverse of the question I asked you first. What do you think is something everyone should know about themselves?
I think that everybody should know that they hold their own power within themselves. Like we are always told to kind of make ourselves small in a lot of ways. And we're never pushed to our ultimate capacities of like who we could be or what we could be. And even myself, like I said before, I know I am capable of so much more, and I just have to apply that. But I think that we all hold the power, and we can speak that power into ourselves. But we can do it like with grace and kindness.
Yeah.
Like with love. Like, we don't have to be these shells of people. Like, we're nuanced people in general. And so we all have light, we all have dark, we all have, good and bad. And there's a way to maneuver and navigate those things to make yourself better. Like, they don't have to, like, being flawed or having a dark side doesn't have to be a negative thing per se, because it can push you towards the light. And it can expose some things in yourself that that you didn't know that you were, which can be healing, like, within itself. Like, we all kind of push those things aside because we're taught that it's like bad and it's not good, and we shouldn't feel those things, or we shouldn't think those things. But it's okay to accept those sides of ourselves, because it's within accepting those sides of ourselves that we can heal from those things, and we can grow from them, and we can evolve. And then the other thing is, like, you don't have to be the same person that you are right now always. Like, you can grow, you can evolve. If you decide, you know what, like, if I were to say, like, you know what, I don't want to compete anymore, what else do I want to do? Like, right. It's okay to do that. Like, you're not locked into anything. Like, you can be who you want to be. You just have to apply yourself, and you have to make that decision within yourself that you can do that. And so it's a powerful thing when you really accept those things and you're really willing to take it head on. And so, yeah, I think everybody is open to, or should be open to, exploring those things and those sides of themselves.
Yeah, I think that last point goes back to your point about growth and you wanting your kids to see that you are allowed to reinvent yourself every day and keep getting better and keep being more what you want to be. As we get ready to depart, I will leave you with something. Have you ever heard the parable poem, the Two Wolves poem?
I have not.
I would encourage, take a look at that. Go ahead and Google it. It's one of my favorites. I actually have two wolves on my neck. One has blue eyes, one has red eyes, and you will see why if you take a look at that. It's really short. Take you like 30 seconds to read, but it's one of my favorites because I think it does give a really cool artistic in the illustration of the human experience and how we navigate through life. So check it out. Let me know what you think. But to everyone else, thank you very much for tuning in. Please let us know, like, comment, share from wherever you're listening, whether it be Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, wherever we'll take our money. We would love to hear back from you. Make sure that you go ahead and follow Marisa at
Phoenix James Fitness
on Instagram and interact with her. Let her know how awesome she is. And we will see you all next time.